Hey, I'm Krista.
Hey, I'm Micah.
Welcome to Bad People with Good Stories. This is a podcast that seeks to challenge black and white thinking
By exploring the gray.
Hi, welcome back again. We're so excited. We have another guest this week. And so I've actually known this guest for longer than my co-host. However, she might know him more intimately than I do.
I would hope so.
Yes, this is my best friend's little brother, whom I've known since I was 14. And I remember...
Crazy.
Yeah, right?
14.
I remember meeting you and your little gang. I was like a TA in your class, the little boys. And yeah, I've seen you grow up. And I remember one moment in particular of you, just being really generous to me. I'd moved out and do you remember this, giving me your tithe money?
Vaguely. I remember it more because I've heard the story retold. But I'm like, yeah, okay, I remember doing
That
that.
tracks.
But I wouldn't have remembered if someone was like, what was something you did for Krista? No idea. No clue.
Very kind. And so, so anyways, this is Grant Klassen, and he runs a business, Goodwood Audio, of which we will get into because it's pretty ironic that you host a podcast called Bad People. But yes, this is
Goodwood.
This is Micah's husband.
Yes.
And just a really generous human and somebody. How long have you been in business for?
I started it as a hobby with a buddy in 2010.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Which was also the year we started dating. So they
No
kind of
way.
coincide that way.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my life got a lot better in 2010 on multiple fronts. Yeah. Tough. Yeah.
But then we broke up a
Exactly.
few times after
Yeah.
that.
I love that. So anyways, you do that. So Goodwood. And it's funny because I always think of what you do and it being hard to explain to other people. It reminds me of like Chandler Bing. Like I think they say that he's like some data processing wizard or something like that. But yes, you officially, what is it that you do at Goodwood?
I was just in one of our shops talking to one of the guys that works for me. And we literally said to each other, what do you tell people you do? Because I've always struggled with this. And so we both came to a similar consensus. I work with mainly touring musicians and guitar players and help them get their rigs ready for tour. So we build out their pedal boards, make sure it's working the way they need it, and does everything they need it to do reliably. So yeah, and a lot of that is simple stuff like making cables and building pedals and all that and putting it all together into a system.
Yes. Okay. So that's something like when you see the guitarist, you normally see them from like the waist up kind of with their musical instrument and them singing. But then you sometimes will see them tap dancing on the stage. And then that is where...
Tapping some
yes,
pedals.
yeah, they're not just like nervous energy or whatever. No, that is, part of what you do, which is pretty cool and really innovative, right? Like there's some...
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, the whole reason I got into it was, and I still remember telling my then boss, and I don't know why I'd said this to her, but I worked at a Bible college and teaching music and doing all that. And I remember going to her office one day so excited. Like, I found this thing. I love building guitar pedals. And I was talking about anything but my job to my boss. I look back, you are such an idiot. I was basically writing myself out of a job.
Yeah,
there.
at that moment, she's like,
Yeah, this
See
is
the
not
writing
the
on the
right
wall.
person for
job
this.
security
Yeah.
is in question.
But I just loved the idea of getting to create something that didn't exist. And this could have been, it happened to be music. It could be electrical work or paintings. I just love the idea of creating something that you can't find anywhere else. And that's a lot of what we still do. The whole inventing kind of side, trial and error, making a ton of mistakes and then figuring it out, that feeling you get
Yes.
when you finally solve the problem.
Right. And then seeing people like the end user.
And see people enjoy it and get something out and like, this is exactly what I want. That's that feeling. And I absolutely love that side of the job. And these days I'm an administrator. The employees get to do all the fun stuff and they're great at it. I love the technical side and trying to figure out problems, and that's where it all kind of started.
Cool. Well, before I hand you back off to Micah, who will talk to you about your background and your history and stuff like that, just for us, like you've got little business aspects in what countries and...
Yeah, people, it sounds more glamorous than it is. It sounds bigger than it is. It's a tiny company, but people mainly work out of their home remotely. So we have a couple guys work out of their houses in Ohio. And then the business started when we lived in Australia in
our
Sydney.
garage.
And in our garage, yeah, and there's multiple garages around Sydney. It's like, oh, that used to be a shop. And you always hear big companies like we started in a garage. We started and we're still in the garage phase. And then so now Chippo, who is the main guy in Australia, he's
Shout
on
out
Canberra.
Chippo.
Yeah, he'll probably listen to this. He's the best. And then we're obviously here in Canada in Pitt Meadows, and so 3 spots. And then there's an amazing guy in the Philippines who makes us look good online, all the videos and
Very
all
cool
the
that you've kind
content.
of found these different ways to sort of be successful in business, which we'll get into. Yeah.
Little, facets.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's it. Cool. Awesome.
Well, for anyone who doesn't know you, babe, I'm going to call you babe. Do you want to just give us a little rundown on like who you are? Who is Grant Klassen?
Well, I feel like there's who I am. Like when I hear that question, I think about my childhood and how different I am than the person I was as a kid. As a kid, I was and am very fortunate, lucky to be brought up in the family. And you mentioned, your best friend is my sister. I have a great sister, great parents. And so I feel very fortunate in that way. But I also look, and Micah would know this because we talk about this stuff, as a kid was also very insecure. And so I think about that and picking a hobby at that time, playing music where I was in front of people, and what a rush that was, being insecure. It's like, what are they going to think? What if I mess up and all this stuff? And then fast forward through moving to Sydney, out of which I never would have gone without Josh, a mutual friend. Never would have done that alone. And because I was too insecure and I was too scared and all that. And
Because he was the one going, right?
he was quitting the band. And the band that we were in as little kids.
Yeah, why don't you say something a little bit about that? Just like, because that's pretty
we met
landmark
we all
in your
met
history.
in high school, so grade 9. Just a group of people that thought they knew how to play music. And so we played music all through high school. We finished high school, and then for 2 years, we were going to try and make it as a professional band. Never even got close, but we had a lot of fun. Like we would...
You recorded a little record, didn't you?
Yeah.
And what was it called again, your band?
Initially, it was Proximity 7. Yeah. And then I think it was Velita after that. Yeah.
I mean, both of those names, I'm not like, I think
Well,
they're decent.
Oh, a little cringy.
No way.
But yeah, so we
For the
tried
genre
doing
you
that.
were in.
And we did little, we went to like the island and went to whatever's like far north on the island. I can't remember the little town. We were so excited to play for, like we would travel 8 hours to play for 30 people. And we're, this is the life, it doesn't get any better than this. And so we just had the best time as a group of friends traveling in a janky old van called the Manatee. And
Shut up. How did you not make it? Because really,
I know
it's all there.
We've got the backstory. Yeah, we've got the backstory. Maybe this is our low moment, and we're about to come back 20 years later. So we just had the best time. And then eventually Josh wanted to go to Australia, and so that was breaking up the band. And so I jokingly said, I'll come with you, and it ended up happening. And
This
so
is to Bible college, right?
just a Bible college for music and, the worship stream, it was called. Was going for 1 year, ended up staying like 3 days into it. I'm like, I'm going to be here for much longer than a year. I just fell in love with probably the independence, new city, being near the beach, and being immersed in a culture that prioritized getting better at music, which I'd never really had. We were in the band and we were all happy with where we were. And this was just such a stretching experience in the best way.
Can I ask, like, was it also great that it was all to the glory of God, like in those moments? Or did that even come in? Was it just like, no, these people love music. It's a good community. That fits?
It was, I think I liked to believe it was a God aspect.
Yeah,
but
no,
if that
for
wasn't
sure.
there,
Yeah.
I think I would have enjoyed it just as much.
Just as much. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So it's nice to give yourself brownie points at the time, of which my views and your guys' views, I know from conversations, have morphed and evolved over the years. And so I look back at that with probably more unkind eyes than I should. But yeah, I liked the God aspect of it, but it was an afterthought now in hindsight. It was an afterthought. I just loved being involved in music and playing. And it's just a huge group of people that all are there to play music. And, I really enjoyed that aspect. But yeah, I ended up staying for 13 years instead of the one. We met so I was there in 2007. We met in 2010. We're married in 2013. We had both of our boys there.
Wow.
Life was, it was by and large, it was pretty good. We really enjoyed it. And I just love Sydney. I love Sydney. And so, but yeah, then I started the company and was so happy, would have been in 2011, 2012, a year or so after, to get paid $50 a week. That was like a we made it moment. We're getting paid. We are no longer volunteering to do this,
This could be
like,
viable.
I can tell people I get paid to make guitar cables and pedals and all this. Oh man.
Yeah, I remember coming over to his apartment a few times and that would have, he's just like in a in a singlet, like building cables under his bunk bed. And I'm just like, what is this? Like, what are you doing?
Please be honest with me. Yeah.
Okay, tell me about it. Yeah. And then from there it just, he kept doing it.
Continually and slowly grew. And I always assumed really fast growth, mainly because of my passion for it. And it's never been the reality. It's just been slowly trucking along, slow and steady. But I still, it's a dream job for me. I absolutely love it. I count myself very fortunate to be able to do what I do in and amongst the days where I wish I was doing anything else. There's bad days and there's good days, but I love it. A great group of guys I work with, and yeah.
When you say like you were like this insecure kid, like in your childhood, teenage years, and then now, just even looking at the difference, because I would say like maybe you were insecure, but you're pretty brave, like to even be on a stage and to, travel around the world to go and live somewhere else with your best friends and stuff. Like that seems like there's this aspect of your character that translates to now.
Yeah. I like the adventure side of it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think I like that feeling where you're out of your comfort zone and it's like this could fail or this could go in the right direction, and the only way to find out is to do it. And I'd still like that. And I think the reason, and I still look at some of my behavior and like that was based out of insecurity. You made that choice or you avoided talking to that person, not because you had other things to do or because you were busy. It's like you were insecure. You were
you're like
worried,
naming it. Yeah.
Too worried about what might have happened on the negative side of things. And so I am more and more aware of that the older I get and try and confront it. But I still, I still have those moments. We all do.
Yeah, we all bump up against insecurity for sure. Yeah.
One of those things we'll never graduate from.
Exactly,
anything, but maybe just get more aware of, more familiar with for ourselves.
Yeah. But
Yeah, the biggest difference between yourself then and now, would you say?
Probably more self-awareness. I would say it's probably the biggest thing. And I still have a long ways to go. I'm sure I'll be 50 and look back at this and be like, yeah, you thought you knew more than you did. And I look back at me in my 20s. I thought I knew more then than I actually did. And yeah, so probably just more awareness. But I think
probably confidence too.
A little bit. I would say I've grown
a little more
self-confidence. I don't know. Life these days, I feel like, is an adventure, and there's a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question because with the business, like from my perspective and journeying alongside you, like I know it wasn't always like straightforward or clear cut, or like you fell in love with that making aspect of it and the creative side, but then it was kind of a journey from that moment to like finally going full time with the business. Do you want to say a little bit about that? Because I think, I witnessed that being a sort of like rocky ride to like, do I really want to do this? And then you were trying to figure out pursuing it alongside church and like our faith aspect. And it felt at times, from what I remember, like the two were kind of on scales, and it was like, which one is more important? Which one is more me? Like, what's actually gonna fulfill me, like ministry life, or do I go into business?
Yeah. I think I loved in the ministry side. There's a lot of things I loved. The people getting to play music, but I also loved the attention. Because there was a group of musicians of which I was, out of a lot of them, I was the senior guy. I'd just been around the longest, and that's what makes you the senior in this context. So people, like I was able to impart wisdom and experience, and I loved that. And again, that's not in that instance, that's probably more out of an insecurity thing. But I loved being the guy that people turned to, selfishly. But then the business I was passionate about, but it was far from guaranteed. And so I remember going, again, that feeling of being pushed out of my comfort zone, of the decision to quit my job, of which the writing was on the wall after that conversation with my boss, quit my job after being part-time, doing part-time Goodwood, part-time college, and finally decided to go full-time with your blessing. And and then that sense of adventure came back as well, of like, I got to make sure that we make enough money to keep this going, because I don't have that college safety net.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of, I feel like it was a bit of a step into the unknown for both of us, because I would say back at that stage of my life, I had quite rigid expectations about like what I wanted my partner to do and be in. So that was a bit of a tension for
Forgot
us.
about that.
Because
Yeah.
I was very like, I was big on the ministry side of things. I was like, that's what I want to do. And I felt, and our culture, the culture we were in, sort of emphasized that too. Like a ministry job was kind of like
The
that
be all
was-
end all.
Yeah, right. So it was hard for people like you who really did feel like, but I really want to do business, to sort of be like, is this just a selfish thing that I shouldn't entertain? Because it's, like that kind of moralizing of it too, a bit of like, but ministry is more valuable. It's more aligned with like what we've been being taught.
It's like eternal purpose.
Right. Yeah. It's just.
I wanted a big mansion in heaven.
Right.
And I gave that up that day.
Yeah. I was like, well, guess I'm not marrying a pastor.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, because like in the Hillsong context, like you were, you MD'd, you were a lead. Help me just like kind of.
It's like music directing. So
yeah.
it would,
like
you had
kind of like reached a certain level of esteem there as well. Like you were leaving something that felt very.
It was secure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Funny enough, like we would sort of think of that as being, oh, so honest and pure and like, wow, like amazing. And yet it seems like you left that to pursue something more honest, perhaps.
Yeah. Which is like foreshadowing future things and I feel like even Micah's lack of rigidity in expecting me to be a pastor, and like at no point was she saying like, I don't want you to do this because you're supposed to be a pastor. And we would converse, and that has...
Yeah, it was more just like, oh, but I feel like this has been what I've been told to expect. So as well, it was a bit of self-examination, like, oh, is this like, yeah, he's his own person. Why would I be trying to control his career to somehow that means something for me? Like, yeah, I think it was a good learning curve for both of us. Like, yeah, just.
So I feel like that characterized future conversations when we were questioning bigger things.
Yes.
Like our faith, and we were questioning what we believed about church, about God, about everything, that this foundation that had been built largely for us, that we were born into, and that extended into when we started asking questions that felt a bit more unsafe. Like, do I actually believe in God? Do I want to go to church anymore? And up until that point, it's an assumption. Of course you do. Of course you will.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But I think that was a really good thing in the sense that we were able to converse about the job. We were able to converse about our faith in a way that probably I was never expecting Micah to be rigid and set her foot down, like, no, can't happen. And hopefully, similarly for me, we would usually try to, and far from getting it always perfect, we would try to have conversations and ask questions and ask, why do you no longer feel you want to go to church or believe in God? Or why do you want to quit this job that is secure and aligns up with my preconceptions of who I married. And so I feel like that has led to deeper conversations because of it.
And it's not to say it didn't come without tensions. Like, so for instance, Grant then quit college and did it part-time so that he could do part-time Goodwood. So for a while there was both jobs, and I was working full-time at that point. And then we decided to take we just kept toying around with it, and you just kept not being able to shake, like, this is, I think, really what I want to do, and I would love to eventually go full-time. And so then, you did. But during that time where there was like the part-time church job, part-time Goodwood, like there were times where most of that time he would work Saturdays. So we were kind of like,
and Sundays were a volunteer
Sundays were just
day.
Swallowed up at church.
So there were no days off.
So I found that hard because it was like, no, we didn't have that much time together. Except for evenings and stuff. Although now when we talk about
once you have kids,
it's like that was
we had all the time in the world. Yeah.
But yeah, I remember finding that really hard. Like, there were sacrifices to sort of taking the route we wanted to take, and trying to just see, okay, what will it look like, and this is what it feels like, okay, and just like one step at a time in the dark, kind of, and then eventually you went full time. And I was still working full-time at church, and I kind of started to not love that job. There were a few days in the morning driving to work, remember, I would cry. I was like, I don't want to.
Something's up.
I don't want to. I just don't love this job.
Yeah.
But it was like our only income at that point for, like the transition between Grant working and then going into this, pursuing this dream. So, but then, you just kept going. And we ended up getting pregnant. So then Asher came along, and that was became my segue out of the job too, for maternity leave. I was like, I'll just make this my sort of like ending point. And then at that time, Grant was kind of earning enough that we were like,
good at budgeting.
We have.
Out of necessity.
It's been good. Like, it's taught us a lot about managing finances. Just like being forced to. But I mean, we look back at like our time when we were both working full-time at church, and like how much we could have saved, and
money was tight, and then realized like money wasn't tight.
Right. But we just ate out like so much. And that was you're socializing. It's part of your social life too.
Well,
like,
it's part
and
of
we
your
lived
pastoral
in
life
Sydney,
as well. You got to take the people out, shepherd the
coffees
flock.
5 times a day. But it really was a time, because like that area where we lived as well in Sydney, like it's just such a cool city, and there was so much fun food there. So I'm kind of like, we could have, but also like it's just part of that age, and I don't know. And now we look back on it really like fondly with the memories we had in that time.
To the point where I was in Sydney not long ago, and literally the first thing I did, get off the plane and go straight to our cafe that we always used to go to. And it was just so many memories. And
it's still the same. That's so nice if you can go back to a place and it's like, oh yeah, this hasn't changed.
I know what to order. I know. Yeah.
Last time you being like, oh, the coffee.
You're like, shut up.
Sydney coffee is very good.
Definitely different than here. That's what I always,
Especially when you're coming off a strict diet of Tim Hortons coffee, and like that's your new benchmark, and then you go to Sydney and
you're like, here we go again.
Yeah.
Micah.
Yeah.
We talk usually with our guests about sort of like that moment of breaking, or just like the small cracks sort of forming. And I feel like in this time that you just brought us through, that's kind of maybe what we're looking at for you. It's interesting. Like, I hadn't really realized your transition away from church. For me now, looking at that, I'm like, like when I think about you as a person, because you're pretty steady Eddie, I think of possibly like cracks forming over time instead of like this one big moment, which is maybe more you or me, that like our world completely shattered apart. But would you sort of describe your shift in perspective as that, or was it a lot to do with when, Micah kind of miscarried?
There's
and that
so much to this. So like the highlighted view, I think I remember probably before even having kids, someone in college or church, they were listening to The Liturgists, which is another podcast on basically asking questions that you're not supposed to ask as a Christian.
Yeah. And you felt that for sure, right? Like you felt like there were,
my first feeling was thinking, well, they're probably not going to last very long. But secondly, I Yeah, but this thought of, and I remember the reason I didn't listen to it at the time was because I didn't want to lose my faith. So I wasn't willing to engage. And I think another way to look at it was I wasn't secure enough in my knowledge, my understanding to even believe like me and God are good. I could be tipped off the rails if I listened to a podcast, in my opinion, back then. So that I remember reflecting on that, like, oh, maybe I'm not as in line with this as I thought. Like I'm very unsure, uncertain.
Would you say even like there was like fear?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fear for sure.
The underlying thing, right?
What if I do lose my faith? What does that mean for my family or my friends, my job, my community?
So much. Yeah.
All that. And so I remember that being interesting. And same thing with what is it? With these books, I'm trying to think of God is Not Great. And these books that are very much Christianity is a sham. I wouldn't even read them. I couldn't read them because I might not have the answers. I might not be the source of knowledge, which what an arrogant perspective to have. And so I remember that being early on.
Yeah, whereas I would have looked at those and just been like, oh, they're deceived.
Yeah, of course.
I wasn't that sure. I was not that sure. Because I know like people, and even to this day, there's things that today I strongly disagree with. But I am under no illusion that people that are very well versed in this area that I disregard could make a compelling argument that I can't argue against. And I'm less bothered by that today because I don't have to have as many of the answers. I still probably need more than I should. But so that was the first thing. And then eventually through all this, I still loved, and I still look back very fondly with the time I had at church playing music, really. Like it was about playing music and music directing with a group of close.
Yes.
The creative.
There's nothing
friends.
like that vibe,
It's
right?
so
Like
good.
holy smokes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I still look back very positively. It's not like Hillsong is the devil and there was nothing good that ever came of it. Like I am the person I am today because of my time there. So lots of fun memories and the people, amazing. But then COVID hit and Australia went into lockdowns very quickly. So we were no longer able to do the church thing, so from 2007 until 2020, I've probably spent more time inside the walls of the church than at home, than outside. That like I worked full time for church on venue, then for college, then I was there on weekends for sometimes 8 to 10 services a weekend. Like this was my life.
Yes,
Yeah, it was
literally.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we were volunteering out at one of the extension services too. So like that was in the time where Grant was working full time with his business and I was working for church and then stopped, and then we had Asher and then we were still doing that. So yeah, our life very much revolved around church still, kind of right up until 2019.
I remember even a picture of him, right? There's that one on the gram of him on your shoulders, Asher on your shoulders. Yeah. And
back then I was like, oh man, such good parents bringing up the kid in the house of the Lord.
This is the shot we all want to get.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, that's not like, some people might think that we're kidding, but that is literally
in
the
worship,
aim.
your kid's hand is up. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's praising the Lord. Yeah.
At the church of all churches, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so the COVID hit, we no longer had this thing that we have been doing for the last 13 years. And so I remember that was, for me, that was the big catalyst. For Micah, it was probably more around the miscarriage, which was all in a relatively close amount of time.
Yeah. When was like the miscarriage was what? You 2019?
2019.
Okay, so like so close. Yeah.
Actually, it was 2018.
It was,
Because
okay.
we had Asher in
All was
May.
on Christmas Day, right?
We had Asher in May, and then we got pregnant like 5 months later. Surprise. We were, totally sidelined by that, but we were like, oh, well.
Here we go.
Yeah, we wanted to have more kids, and we didn't want to have them close, so I guess we're in round 2. And then, December came, and that's when I miscarried.
And then that was, of course, like you're fully in ministry mode at that point, right?
And
so
I was serving in church
when you started.
Things were happening. Yeah, so.
And your
That's
perspective
crazy.
on that incident, like were you kind of like the bystander? Did you go through all of the same emotional journey that she did?
Definitely not the same. And I'm going to be careful because I'm also a huge crier, as you know. So I'll only say so much. But it was I was a little surprised because I think up until that point, it didn't really, probably because of all the busyness and everything going on, it didn't really sink in that we were having another kid. And I felt the same way with Asher, because Asher, our first kid, we were pregnant, very excited, and then went through the whole birth, and we had a kid and loved spending time with him. But I feel like it didn't really click that I was a dad. Like, I always looked at my dad as being a dad, or older people as being the father, you know? And so I remember it was probably around 6 months of Asher that I was like, oh, I'm like actually a dad now. Like it
Yeah, it
I'm a
it
slow
takes
learner.
a while to sink in.
It
that
does.
first
It took
kid.
so long for me, like for the feeling to line up with reality. And so I feel like I had a similar thing with the next pregnancy, where it didn't really sink in. I didn't really,
Right, because I wasn't showing hugely.
No,
we were,
yeah. And so that, it didn't really sink in. And then we went through the miscarriage. And then it was more like while Micah was miscarriaging, I kind of realized how excited I was. And so it was, I don't know, I feel like in many aspects of life, the emotional side of things, it can be very different from reality, like, or what you expect it to be. And then what you experience can be a very different thing. And so that was no different. And so I found it harder, probably not harder than Micah, harder. There was the lead up. We were pregnant again so soon. And then afterwards in reflection, like, oh, I was actually really excited.
Like the grief took a second. Yeah.
And then Wilder came along, and he was born in 2020, right at the beginning of COVID. So we were like, well, I remember it being, it was a little bit of a toss up if I was going to be allowed in the delivery room or not, because it was right at that, like, no one knows what's going on.
And they did get to a point where partners weren't allowed in there. Yeah.
Wow.
It was very scary for a lot of birthing people at that time, because
of course, not being in the room while
Yeah.
my kid is being born.
we were
And
lucky to have
so-
the timing we did.
Yeah, so that worked out well. So that was all very surprising. But yeah, COVID hit shortly after, like right as Wilder was born, and then church stopped, and we only had our Connect group. Connect group being a small group of people from church, and we would just hang out, I don't know, once every other week.
Yeah, but even then we weren't, like during the lockdowns, we weren't meeting. We kind of were involved in our Connect group a lot more, like with NOS going on. And then COVID, we were just stuck at home.
But I just remember talking with people in the Connect group, and it felt like a lot of them had the very same questions that were now creeping up, that I had the space to think about.
Right. You weren't just
I didn't have
inundated.
space to
Yeah.
analyze.
Yes.
I didn't have space to analyze what I actually believed. I was too busy having fun. And again, like, I really enjoyed all of that. But now it's like, what do I actually believe? And that was the catalyst. That was when the cracks started forming. And when we weren't going to church anymore. And this was also off the back of 6 months of forest fires where we couldn't really go outside. And then we went straight into COVID.
It was very apocalyptic.
It was
in many ways.
That was an interesting time. And so the cracks were definitely forming as soon as I had the bandwidth to stop and reflect. Up until then, if it would have happened 2 years earlier, probably this whole thing would have happened 2 years earlier, because I would have had time to stop and reflect.
We talk a lot about like being disembodied, like this idea that what church sort of did to us, or what we allowed happen or whatever, was this like, you know, the body's bad and you're constantly like, there's so much going on that you don't have time to really like be
process.
embodied.
Yeah.
And how is that for like a male, like somebody, like, I don't look at, or I have never looked at you in the past going like, oh, Grant isn't connected to himself. But do you feel like that happened for you in a different way than, or is that what happened when you were finally able to like sit? Or do you think that, no, I've always been connected to myself, especially with the music and all of that? Or there was that?
I don't know if I've thought of it that way before. You're getting me thinking. I feel like I was able to, the slowing down forced me
to just think. You were always
to be able
connected.
to make connections.
Yes. Okay.
So there's my actions. I've been serving in church, super Christian guy, whatever. And then there's the reality of, well, when I pray or journal or think about what this aspect of spirituality and my faith means to me, Does it line up with the actions I'm doing? And at that point, it didn't. This was a lot of fun, but this was lacking. And so you have to ask why.
Right.
And then the hard questions of, well, do I actually believe this? And then you're like, oh, I can't think that.
Well, yeah, like, oh shit, that came out.
Yeah, you're not
like,
allowed.
Oh, put it back in the thing. Yeah.
And it's not like someone else external to you was saying you aren't allowed to ask that question, but it is implied. And
cultural conditioning kind
well,
of.
you're supposed to grow in your faith, and that doesn't mean implication moving backwards, backsliding.
Yes. Or doubting.
Or letting
doubting
go of
Thomas
it altogether, yeah.
But yeah, I do feel throughout that whole process, fast forwarding over many years of wanting clear black and white answers. Does God exist? Does he not exist? Is this true? Is it not true? And having this wanting clear, clean cut answers that I can now move forward from, which I've never found, unfortunately. Fast forwarding through all that, I feel like a much better version of myself now, even though former me would look at me today like you're more evil, you backslidden, you don't believe the right things, you're not going to the right place. But I feel so much more human, vulnerable, real, able to ask questions and dialogue and disagree and be curious.
Yeah, probably kinder, right? Like, and probably kinder to your former version of yourself. Like,
yeah, I would say.
Yeah, some of the rigidity I find that I would see in my former self that would have like maybe judged my current self is like, oh, it's actually really great to be able to look back and be like, that's okay. Just life will happen to you. And yeah, you get a little squishier. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I still look back and it feels like a different person back then. But I feel like we've had, even in our marriage, I would never have guessed pre-COVID, let's say, I never would have guessed that us falling away from Christianity or deciding to maybe not go the typical route.
Yeah, I like that better than falling away.
Yeah, I mean, we've decided to ask questions and see where we end up. I never would have guessed that would have brought us closer together. Although it's uncharted waters in a sense. We have a template for what the good Christian life looks like through, friends and my parents and church culture and stuff. And so I don't know what to do next. There's so many, like, how do we raise our kids in this? I still believe, I want to raise empathetic, moral children, but I don't know how to incorporate that without the framework of Christianity around it. Like, I have so many questions and so many unknowns, but it definitely feels, I don't know, for lack of a better term, right.
Yes, good, right?
It
yeah,
feels,
yeah.
I would feel fake doing it a different way, even though we could be doing it all wrong. I have no idea, but we're doing the best we can.
I mean, this is like for both of you, maybe, because I guess sort of the next phase of this conversation could be about like your framework currently, like how do you do life currently? And what I've noticed in your marriage, like, maybe in the first sort of go around of like how you got together was like probably some level of like gender roles and idea of like maybe even submission and male headship or, whatever that looks like, complementarianism. And now currently, like I consider you guys to have like a lovely marriage. One, I know that's not perfect, but that seems to really like value each other's like opinions. There's a lot of mutuality. I mean, you just decided to go back to school. I know when we first started the podcast, one of my questions to Micah was like, oh my gosh, is Grant going to be okay with this? Like, this affects like him. And this sort of my idea of like what partnership looked like in maybe in just things that I've seen in the past, and that it felt very different with how your guys' partnership functions, and maybe just to talk about your marriage and sort of the journey of the unknowns and how you found or are finding your foundation and footing going forward with raising your kids and fatherhood, motherhood, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I'd be curious what you think on starting to date an early marriage with gender roles and what your expectations were.
Yeah.
I remember you told a story about making a really good meal. I feel like that's deep.
Yeah, mine, I mean, like we actually we're both still grateful for our pre-marriage counseling, which was with an older couple in church, and they kind of like yeah, I think probably it would have been a little different to what other complementarian. I'm not sure. But anyway, we got a lot of like, there was definitely discussion about sex, which I think was good for us, right? Because it like helped. But yeah, I was very traditional, I think, in our early, like when we decided to date, it was very serious. So it was like, I don't want to just like date a whole bunch of people. Like I date to get married. And we look back at that.
The lightheartedness
Of
here.
course.
We look back at that like, oh my gosh, we were so serious. Like that was
Right?
way more serious than it
And you
needed
would
to
have
be.
been
Yeah.
like at 19, 20?
No, I was 20 when we started
I would have been
dating.
23.
Yeah. But yeah, it was very yeah, I would have looked at our relationship that way a bit more, just although I think that's why like Grant and I got together in the first place though, is because I was very like, yeah, attracted to him and who he was, and he has never been like assertive in that sense of like I am the head, and like I've always felt like we were learning together, but I definitely did have some preconceived conditioning in my, just for myself. Like I put things on myself, I think, a lot in the early days of marriage, where this is the story Grant's referring to, where he was working full-time still at church, and I had like a hospitality job, so I would finish at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And yeah, in our first few months of marriage, like after we'd got back from here, actually, we had like a Canadian celebration and honeymoon, and then we came back and it was like back into the like daily life where we're married. Yeah, it's like, oh, this is like
Your duties.
this is, yeah,
Wifely and husbandly duties.
Right.
Yes.
this is life begins. And yes, I would finish at 2 p.m. And so I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like it's 3 hours until he finishes. Like I need to have dinner ready. And like when he walks through the door. And so the story he's referring to is I had like thought, okay, I'll have like a roast dinner ready when he comes home.
So 1950s.
Yeah.
Very good.
Which is funny because like that's something I saw my Nana and my, like it was the roast dinners, you know, like, and they had dinner on the table 5 every night for their husbands, right? And husbands were often not at the table, and that was a frustration. Had to be called to dinner. And yeah, so Grant came home and I think he was a little like, oh, like, and then because he doesn't,
You sound like my dad then. Oh,
yeah, oh. But I think he like, I thought this is what he would want, and he came home and was like, I think he was, do you remember that?
I don't remember it,
Okay.
honestly.
Yeah, just like our little tiny apartment. I'd done a roast chicken, I think, with veg and stuff, and it was part of it was like those early days of like this is so new, and like right, you still don't really know each other. We're kind of just like, you're just doing what you think you should do, right?
Like putting on a role. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that's partly just marriage, like getting to know each other, and part of it is, right, you just do what you've seen and what you've been told, or what, yeah. And yeah, our church was probably pretty like encouraging of the complementarian, and that was probably the biggest influence, I would say, on what our expectations of being married was shaped by our Christian community, for sure. So, yeah, I think it took a little while to like just figure it out, and yeah. But yes, at the beginning, I probably had a lot of expectations for myself and you as well in some terms, but I don't know.
Did you feel a lot of pressure as like a Christian husband, quote unquote?
I feel like a lot of this stuff is caught and not taught.
Right.
A lot of these roles.
Yeah.
And so that's where I probably wouldn't have been able to put as many words or articulate it, what my actions may have betrayed me as. And so that's where definitely the feeling of wanting to figure this out, and I felt the pressure to make sure we were financially stable, of which I picked the wrong career for.
Right. Well, even that was I think the part of it for you too, because going into Goodwood, it wasn't like, it was pretty small.
I wasn't making $250,000 a year to make guitar cables, and yeah. So, but I always felt that pressure, but then I also recoiled a little bit at the thought of very defined roles. Like I love to cook. Like one of my favorite things to do on the weekend is to cook. And so that doesn't fit into this role, you know? And so there's, certain aspects like that right from the beginning. Some of our dates we would cook together, and that would just be what we did, and it wouldn't fit that role so much. And it's only probably gotten, I would hope, slowly more and more outside of that expectation. But I feel like a lot of it would have been internal and not vocalized. And then as the years move on, we've gotten better at communicating about it.
Right. I think maybe a thread in that has helped us sort of maybe keep moving towards the, I don't know, egalitarian kind of model. Not that we're like always consciously being like, this is who we want to be as a man. I think we just do what we feel comes out of like respect for one another, would you say? And just wanting the other to be like happy. Right. At our best. But I think one of the things maybe that was in that mix was that we both were quite, like I was very in conversation at that time with a lot of my family history and past, and there was a lot of things I was like, I don't want to be that way, or I want to do things differently. And you had a little bit of that too. Like we were
more defined by what you don't want to be than
right.
What is the most natural fit.
Yeah. So that we were discussing, I think, throughout those times, like those kinds of things which has probably helped pave some of our path.
But early on, from the outside, Micah would have been probably viewed as the supportive wife while I figured out my career. And it would have looked very,
very complementarian.
And then Micah wanted to do like study more recently, and throughout this whole time, there's been other things that you've pursued creatively, and so it's been exciting for so many years with the focus being on my business for her to now we can put the focus on her, and I've always found that exciting, and I've always wanted her to find that the passion and excitement I feel for my business, I'm excited for Micah to find these days and study with the podcast, with other creative. She's done courses and pattern design stuff and writing. Yeah. So, I don't know. Looking for opportunities to support each other, I think, again, when we're at our best. There's many selfish moments I have that I'm not proud of.
Well, I'm sure. But like, I find for you guys, your baseline is just this mutual respect. It's not something you have to put on or try hard to do, which is like, that's beautiful, because I don't think that kind of comes for everybody, right? Where they're like, oh, actually my natural inclination is to not be respectful of my partner, and I have to work so hard at that. And that's, I think, a really beautiful thing that you found in your partnership together from the beginning. Like, you kind of knew that this felt good to be with each other, that maybe you were cooking together, regardless of if that was you were seeing other people do that or whatever, that it seems like you guys have just quietly sort of pursued what feels best, which is really admirable. And I think that, like, truly that seems to be what is functioning, like, for this healthy marriage, I think, right? And again, yes, you guys say it's not perfect, but the ups and lows for you don't seem to be so, like, jarring. By and
large, it's been relatively steady with its ups and downs, but we aren't volatile people. So I don't think either one of us have massive highs and really low lows. Like, I think we're kind of just bumping along. We have our lows and our highs, and
the rockiest part was probably with the miscarriage, and I had the mental health things
and learning how to
that.
Communicate early in marriage.
Right.
I was very
how did you figure that out?
I had so many frustrating moments early in our marriage.
Okay, because you like to retreat, you've said, right? Okay, so this
and I
is
don't have to
thing.
go into this if you don't want me to, but
what?
Well, just the early frustrations.
No, I by all means. I think it's great to talk about.
So I am probably more, especially early in the marriage, I'm more able to communicate while I'm thinking through something.
Right.
And you'll be able to hear me speak.
And stay pretty calm while doing it?
For the most part. Early in our marriage, we would have disagreements. I don't even know what one of them would be. You might remember some of them. Either way.
Some of them, yeah.
Maybe let's say about me going on a work trip, or about extra service at church that I wanted to play. We'd have a disagreement about something, probably pretty small. And I would communicate, why are you frustrated about this? This is the chain of events that happen. I would be very logical and
help me help
unhelpful.
You. Yeah. Right.
And then Micah would just sit there and think. Well, quiet. She wouldn't say a word. And I quickly learned this was part of her process, but I had to physically bite my tongue to just not get, I would be fuming underneath waiting.
What did that mean to you? Like, just that she
Why
wasn't...
can't you say a word? Like, just communicate something. I asked you a question and just, but as time goes on, you realize, and I think this has been a lot of my maturation, is that a word? Process of realizing that the events that happen as kids, how Micah was encouraged to behave, is different than how I was encouraged to behave. I was encouraged to dialogue. I was encouraged to speak totally safe place.
Yeah.
Micah was not. And so her retreating was, and we talked about this in a bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of this process was learning that I was expecting her to push back. I was expecting to hear her opinion.
Right. And I was very afraid of confrontation.
Of course.
And at that time as well, it sounds so silly, and I think back on it now, but like it was actually so hard for me to know what I was feeling.
Of course.
My
I
body
get
would
that.
react first, and then I would be like,
Well, you're like shutting down,
right.
probably.
And I
yeah.
knew I felt frustrated. I knew I felt like bitter sometimes, but I couldn't. It would take you sometimes like 3 days to journal through back to like,
and then we would
what?
talk.
What? Yeah.
I've moved on. I'm done. Yeah.
He's done with it by then, and I'm like, so the other day.
I mean, a lot of people would be like, well, why are you bringing up there's just so many ways that could have gone sideways.
I know.
And that you guys kind of, like, you learned a new way, and you learned probably a new way. Right?
It was such a learning curve, because I think in the midst of all that, I also had a huge fear of like, not a fear, but an aversion to any kind of like big outbreak or like outburst.
Again, makes sense.
Yeah. So trying to like process my feelings while not blowing up or like being so scared that might happen if I wasn't able to like get a grasp on why I was actually.
But neither
so
one
many
of
things
us,
at play.
Neither one of us have a poker face.
Right.
So I know for these 3 days, I'm just waiting. Like, all right, whenever you're ready, tell me what's on your mind. Anything on your mind? It's like, no, nothing. And like 2 days later, it's like, I have something to talk to you about. I was like, okay, there it is. And now we can have a conversation. And it would be the same with me. I'd be frustrated about something, and I'm horrible at hiding it. And so for the most part, we would both know that there's something we need to talk about. But that was very frustrating for me early on, needing it to be done my way.
Right.
It's the conversation, and not thinking and not realizing that there's more at play here than Micah just not really wanting to talk right now. Like it goes much deeper than that.
Yeah. And we kind of, I think what helped us is that we did have a lot of people who were realistic about marriage, like in our lives, which I think was great. Like not too idealistic about it. There was a little bit of that, but like, yeah, we had a lot of friends who we could ask, like, what was the first year of marriage like for you guys? And a lot of people were honest about that, which I think we knew for some people. Right. That first year can be really hard. And like that, it also just made sense to us because like you're living with someone for the first time that you've not like lived with before. And yeah.
The boy.
Yeah.
He leaves his socks around.
Yeah. So that was, but I think my pattern up until our marriage had been whenever something was troubling me or like hard to deal with, I would just journal and like retreat into myself. So it was a big learning curve of like, okay, now I have to like let someone else in on this process, and I have no idea how to do that. Like,
well, and the model that you had seen was scary. Like that's a scary process to talk about conflict, and yet, like your parents, I mean, they're.
Yeah, and I have a question for you as well in this vein of my parents were one of the people that I knew from years of watching them and hearing them converse that I kind of had two things in my head, that marriage gets better as you go, but it's not easy.
Right.
And so it's almost the better as you go is earned by being willing to confront what's in the way, the conflicts, the thing. Yeah, you gotta work hard at it. So I was not under the illusion that marriage was going to be easy, that Micah was going to bend to my will and be there to make my life better. It was like this was a partnership.
Right.
But I also am curious for you, because me and Mike have talked about this and we have differing opinions. I also think that choosing Micah as my wife and her choosing me as her husband was a bit of a fluke. As in, I give a lot of credit to happy accidents.
Right.
I do not think, and a lot of it would be my attitude going in and her attitude going into the marriage of being willing to work on things. Yes, but I feel like we also have so many friends who went into marriage with a good perspective.
I know, right?
Good
Yeah.
intentions.
And it didn't work
Good
out.
habits.
So why did
Yeah.
their marriage not work out and ours did? What did we do right? And I just don't think you can give that credit. I think a lot of it is you did the best you could at the time, and there's a good chance it won't work out, even if you try hard, even if
that's
you
what
put
the
the effort
stats
in.
tell you, right? And like, I mean, there's that one great divorce podcaster online or whatever that always sort of says it's like a crapshoot. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I wanted to believe that you could work hard and even take something that was challenging and still like fight for it and make it
I believe you
work.
can, for the record. I don't think it's total luck, but I do think you can put in a lot of effort, a lot of work, and maybe still the right answer is to let it go.
To let it go. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, yes, would agree with that. And it is, I think why is this people? I don't know. Cause I remember having, like you guys talk about having like real marriages that you could look at and that would maybe say there was no formula or that it is really hard work. And I think that that's great because then I don't know that I saw that as much. I saw like really perfect marriages that seemed like I don't know that they were
Polished.
honest. Yeah. And I don't know that they were really honest about what either their starting points actually looked like. And I'm like finding out later in life, once mine all fell apart and they're like, well, this was actually what was going on in mine too. And I'm like,
would have been great to know early on, right?
Yeah, like literally, I'm like, well, yeah, I wish if I had known that, I think I would have tackled things a bit differently instead of kind of putting my head in the sand on a few issues or whatnot. But I mean, I love the idea of marriage and what it does for people, like this idea that you're kind of glued together and that you keep getting to choose somebody. I hate the idea of like ownership. And that's the bit where I think sometimes the church doesn't do a great job of. Like we talk about the choice every day of like, yeah, you have to choose this person. But yeah, with the idea that you can't get divorced kind of in the church. I mean, you can, but I mean, I've lived it out where I had to choose that. And I don't know that I feel welcome in those spaces really. So it's sort of like, oh, well, you
Which
chose.
I find funny in the sense that you're allowed to make bad decisions in so many areas of your life, but not marriage.
Yeah.
And yeah, I am not an advocate for easy divorce. I'm an advocate for working at it, but I also know there's circumstances that are not ideal or safe or whatever. Yeah. And I don't know. It's just conversations that we've had in the past of I probably give more credence to serendipity and luck of the draw than I would have no matter what.
Yeah. Well, I think more people need to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think even like you saying bad decisions, just like we could talk about that for a whole podcast episode because what is a bad decision, But
well, I have another friend that, admittedly probably chose to get married more out of pressure than out of compatibility. And I would classify that in the context of marriage as probably maybe not the wisest decision. Not impossible to reconcile, but probably not the best choice.
Yeah. And I think that's tricky because you like when sex is in the mix of like you can't really have sex until you're married. And
yeah, there's so much.
Right. Just in the Christian context, there were so many things that contribute to like a marriage based on those things than actual compatibility with each other. And so that's why I think I am grateful that we like. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure for some of our dating, right? I was like, I don't know. And then
I'm aware.
Much to your chagrin. But
frequent breakups.
But I feel like when I made the choice, I was like, I know what I'm choosing now. And I'm sure that it's not going to be easy and that there'll be times where I won't feel like being married to you. But I know enough that I like can choose you 100% and be like, yes, I'm going to choose you. And getting to that point was so liberating for me where I was like, okay, because I kept waiting for like a message to drop out of the sky. That's how I've been being like, this is your husband, you should. And I never got that. So that was an interesting faith journey for me where I was like, oh, I just have to choose. Like,
Did you guys ever do that as Christians when you were younger? Like, if you want me to choose this person to be my wife, around the next corner, someone's going to be wearing a yellow beanie.
All the time. And then it's like the confirmation bias of where you're like, I don't see it. And then you're like,
Yeah.
way
There's a
over the distance. Yeah.
a yellow Arby's sign. Oh, that's good enough.
Or
Yeah.
then there's all the people like that God told me to be, that I was going to be your, like, and if you're going by that
The
logic,
manipulation.
then you have to believe someone who says that, like, okay. And I know people have gotten married because of those kinds of
like
words of prophecy, or like God told me, and that's just wow.
It's funny because I think one of the things too is like, can you be fully you and like in this marriage or in this like relationship, which is like and that's the tricky thing I think also about Christianity, is this concept of like dying to self, and that somehow fully being again embodied or being fully expressing who we really are, like you going to school or you having dreams of your own, and likewise for you, that if parts of those things, like what compromise actually looks like, it's not really like that these bits need to like die necessarily, but how do you kind of make them work together? And that's the bit where I think, like, I would say that I eventually had to depart from my marriage, not just like it wasn't a flippant decision, but because I couldn't fully be me in that space.
Right.
And I don't think that was like, both of us trying to be that kind of way with each other. I'm not sure that maybe my ex would say the same thing too. I think he probably would. And that's, you don't know that until you've kind of like worked it fully out, and you're like, shit, we keep coming up amongst this, and this is not going away.
Well, to this point, I think to your point, like I would say that I wasn't even sure who I was to a full so like I think what has maybe helped in our marriage is that I have never felt like judged by Grant, because obviously it's natural that you sort of become more and more who you are as life progresses, and you find that out, right? Yeah, like some you have those things where to an extent who you are, but like so much is like, and so I think feeling like I could evolve and could, like I said to you recently, like I feel like I'm more myself than I've ever been now, and I love that I feel that with you, like that I can be who myself, like, and I've been through some change, and probably some that were or just a surprise to you maybe, but I don't know.
Like,
just
is she
never
different
felt like
now
judged
than when you first? I mean, I would say probably, but
100%.
yes. But like, how was that scary? Like, as you're watching that.
Well, even through going back to what we were talking about before around when we started asking questions about faith and belief and all that, and departing from what we once held to be truth around Christianity, I realized when she started questioning things, and I was questioning things at this moment as well, but when she started questioning things, I realized like she was one of my foundations for faith. So when one of my foundations, Micah, was cracking, then it became a lot more real when I started asking questions, if that makes sense. And so it was almost to a degree like, well, you're not allowed to ask questions like this because you're supposed to have it all figured out. Like she has the good relationship with God, and I can be close to her, and therefore I might, it'll rub off on me in a sense of also by proxy having a good relationship with God. And so that I remember thinking for a short while, like, oh, she shouldn't be doing this, and then realizing what was going on and what I believed about her. And
yeah, it's funny how you believe things about yourself, or how your self-view is often based on like how someone else as well operates.
That surprised me as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
When I say that Grant, I've never felt judged by Grant, like I would say I was the judgmental one
Right.
at the
I
beginning.
think I remember you saying that. Like, oh, he's not holy enough. Like,
well, I would say now, like I was like super spiritual back then. And I had carved like I guess a practice for myself of spirituality and like devotion that I would sometimes judge him for. Yeah. Like I loved it when we'd go to a cafe and journal together because, and like, or I would sometimes be like, you don't really read your Bible. Like you should be reading. Like I took that pastoring role upon myself of like spiritually, which I now look back on and think like it just yeah, that's one regret that I'm like, I wish I wasn't like that. But I think I was able to sort of see how I was being like that too, hopefully. I don't know. So I think, yeah, when I did start having questions, that felt very like reverse of like, I don't know.
I think you've said that before, like this sort of good girl and like what it meant to be Micah and like the leader and the pastor. And then when that all went away, you're like, oh,
Yeah, a lot of my identity revolved around my relationship with God and how I thought I presented in that way. So, because then like I remember going to a meeting at church with Grant. I'm not sure if you remember this, probably, but it was when I was kind of in that space of really questioning, and I started to feel quite like cynical about everything. And I remember Grant taking me to a finance meeting at church with some like one of the guys that was giving like advice out to couples at church for financial advice.
Very successful financial
Right.
guy. Yeah.
Successful, like up there guy. And he was offering like advice to like couples. So like, you know, spouses, bring your wife along. Like, we need to speak to both of you, that kind of deal, like the complementarian thing. And I just remember going, and Grant was really excited about it. And we got out of the meeting, and Grant was like feeling pretty good. And like, I think from my perspective, you had felt like encouraged by it or whatever.
Totally.
And then in the car,
I had a blueprint.
Right. He had a
you had
blueprint
some answers
from someone who was further along and was making money. And like, and then I was just like very like, wah, wah. Like in the car, I was like, yeah, he was annoying. Like, he said that he has always listened, like he just listens to his wife about like, he said that cliche line of like, always trust your wife or whatever. And
kind of saw through it.
right. I was just like, well, it's just so easy to say that, but like, I don't know. It just rattled me the wrong way somehow. And I was just like, yeah, no, he was just sort of cliche. And Grant, I remember our car ride home was kind of like quiet. And I think that was one moment I remember of it being like, I had sort of flipped and you were still a little bit in that world. And then those were our cracks showing, where I was just like, I don't buy it. And then you were kind of surprised by that, I think.
It's funny that you're talking about success, because I think that was something that I wanted to ask the both of you, but you in particular, like when you're thinking about going forward and kind of like in the past, you would have probably thought, oh, I should stand on stage and tell like the next generation about how to be successful based on what I've found to be successful in my own life. And now going forward and thinking, like, I do respect the both of you. I respect how you parent. I respect your marriage. I respect you in business, making different choices to sort of, you know, employ other people and do something that you're passionate about. And those to me are like, that's what success looks like. So if you were to say, okay, this is how I'm doing it, kind of like what this guy was sort of saying, how are you finding those different metrics for yourself, like without having maybe the Bible to look at, that like, oh, here's the outline, here's the black and white, here's like what a successful quote unquote business needs to look at for margins and all that stuff. Like maybe walk us through what that looks like for even, fatherhood and being a husband. Yeah.
I think 5 years ago, success would have been a number in the bank. Now, and this was even highlighted by a recent work trip, I realized how much the trip was necessary, but it highlighted how much I missed my family when I was gone. So I think success now you have to have money in the bank to be successful as a business. You have to make a profit, but that is probably further down the list now, being profitable. Very important, but I think for me, it would be getting to choose who I work with.
Right.
And have the flexibility to do things with my family. So if there's something on at the boys' school, they're doing a presentation or a play or something, success in that moment would be like, oh, I can leave work and go and see it. Or, yeah. And it doesn't mean that I do 50% of the pickups, because I don't. That's not equal. But there's the flexibility there. Micah wanting to study, I can change my schedule to help my family, and Micah can shift her schedule to help her family, and we can work together on that and have a conversation about it. Is this working? Is it not working?
Right. Yeah. Like there's enough space that you've created that it's not, or so rigid that if you move something, it's all going to fall apart.
The priority, at its best, not always, at its best, the priority is, does this work for the family? If so, then we'll do it in the business. And like, I currently work Sunday nights because it lines up with Australian time, one of the other shops, and I have Fridays off. And one of my favorite times in the week is boys are in school and Micah and I can have a date on Friday. And just hang out. So that to me is successful. And yeah, so I think that's a big part of it. And then with the employees that I have, I love the guys on the team. Like I genuinely enjoy just getting to chat to them. That is successful in my mind. And not painting the picture of, look at me, I'm so successful. But that's what's shifted. Whereas before, it's like, oh, if you don't have $500,000 to burn in the bank, or multiple vacation properties and all that, like that was success. And maybe it is to a degree. But if you have that and your family hates you, I feel like that's one of the biggest failures you could have. And one, for me at least, far outweighs the other. So Elon Musk, estranged from most of his kids, one of the richest people on the planet. He is successful in one metric and a huge failure in another, in my opinion.
Right.
So, yeah, I have a question for you with like, because obviously building something that does grow in reputation and like rapport over the years and the steady, like, yeah, slow steps, I feel like that would come with, like there's definitely times you sort of have to battle your ego and weigh up like, okay, is this an ego thing, or is this like have you had times where you sort of, yeah, like I'm sure that's at play a lot for you in making decisions about that and stuff. But do you want to speak to that a little? Because I'm curious how you sort of tackle that.
I remember it's very easy for me to have an inflated ego. And part of my job is to be visible. And that's part of my job. Early on, the first business partner was Micah, and I still am good friends with Micah. He lives in Australia. But I look back again out of insecurity, and there were things that went on in the business that I would try and shut down. And at the time I wasn't like, oh, it's because you're insecure and you want to be seen and all that. But looking back, it was because he would be more visible than I would be. And I look back, it's like, bad decision.
Ego things.
Whereas to now, I genuinely believe, although this hasn't been tested, so I could be kidding myself, that if there was a better suited person in the team, in the company, to be the visible person, I'm good. I'm happy. And again, I could be totally lying to myself, but I don't feel that same sense of like I have to be the guy. I'm happy to let other people shine and give credit and all that, but that's not always been the case, and I struggle with that. Yeah.
It's interesting because like you're being so honest about maybe that being a part of it, like even from your childhood, being like, I liked that tension of feeling like I was on display or getting some attention, and I would say that's something that I also enjoy, right? I think I've been...
That's a human thing.
Yeah. And it's sometimes to the max. Like I'm like, oh, do I love social media? Yes. Like I like the validation of the like, and I like to like perform to a certain extent. And in the past, maybe I wanted to like shame myself, like, oh, no, that's so bad. And like, ugh, again, like my ego is like too much. And then kind of trying to be kinder, and which I kind of see what you're saying too, to go like, oh, I see, I can be honest about it at least. Right. And then maybe just go like, that's okay that exists. Like I actually really like to challenge myself to be the face of things and to be, I mean, you host a pretty successful podcast as well, and you're doing like a lot forward facing. And I think that that's a need. And if that's something you enjoy doing and you like the notoriety of that kind of too, like that's to be celebrated, that you're always, again, like it's huge to be honest about that. People aren't honest enough about those things.
Yeah, I feel like with that, because I think it's an interesting balance between like, I don't think fame is wrong, but I think you have to have a real good handle on yourself to handle it, I guess, without it going to your head. But it doesn't mean you're like, in my mind, that means you're constantly in conversation with your ego.
Totally.
And like, you have an awareness of like, of where
I kind of disagree.
Okay.
Well, I agree and disagree in the sense that I think it's okay to pursue notoriety, as you put it, if it's for the benefit of the business in this context.
Yes. Okay.
But I think the tricky part is that you also then need to be aware of the decisions that you're making. Like, is this decision being made out of my ego and because this will forward me personally? When my job is not to forward my name. My job is to forward my business's name.
Yes. Yes.
That I happen to own. But those are two very different things. So that's where, and I think the other flip side to that is if I currently work downstairs at where we live. If I walk up the stairs and I expect the same treatment after editing and curating my face and what I say for the internet and people seeing that as reality, of which it is not. But if I expect that treatment, oh, thank you so much for this. You're so knowledgeable in that. I love that you do this. And I go upstairs and Micah's like, why are you late?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I expect her to treat me like the people online do. I think that's where the disconnect begins and the ego has started to kid itself.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's where I think you're saying the same thing as me, but in fleshing it out a bit more, because like that requires you to be aware, right, of like, yeah, ego, like and because I'm sure there's been times where your ego and is tied to the business.
100%.
Right.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I remember Kendrick actually saying something to this extent.
Yeah.
Our friend,
I mean,
Kendrick.
our friend,
I don't know if you've heard of him.
Penny. No, because I find him inspiring. Like, he's very famous and stuff, but he has said you have to keep the people around you who know you best, which is like the ones who sleep beside you, like see your little daily habits and like know that you're just a human, really. And when you know that other people will definitely be seeing you not as a human, they'll be seeing you as like a face or a product or a CEO, like, and I think all those things are so great, but it's not the full you. And like, you're a full human, and only a select few kind of get the whole picture of like, I think you're an amazing business owner. And like, yeah, I don't know, I'm just so proud of like everything you've done. And we often don't get into it as much, which is why I was like excited to have you on the podcast, because I wanted to be able to just talk about some of that side of it with you. But yeah, then we also just like ordinary human beings who like
need to get our groceries and have an empty fridge.
Right, and need to like juggle a schedule and kids and like our differing desires and wants and like, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and it's such like a nice thing to kind of think that you're so special, right? Like it can be, you really can buy into the lie of like, well, all these other people think I'm amazing or they need me to be a certain type of way. And then I think maybe some of the reality that the people that know you best are dosing out or giving you, like it just doesn't feel as nice. And so depending on,
it's a bit more mundane.
Yeah. And it can feel like, well, they're just Debbie Downers or they don't really know. And these other people really are the ones that I want to listen to. But yeah, no, I think that, I mean, yeah, I feel like I've lived part of that, and it gets really tricky that if you stop listening to the people that know you best, I think that's where you get into trouble.
Yeah, and I think it can go the other way too, where like I just see you as, you know, my husband and like father and not recognize the things you've actually accomplished as a business owner, and like recognizing all that work too and effort and like, yeah, how much it does mean to you and what it, like the part that it plays in your life and who you are is like, I think a challenge to keep. We talk about this a little bit of just like encouraging each other and like recognizing each other's achievements without it. Yeah, I don't know. It's the balance.
That's like a trust piece, I think, for the both of you to go like, I'm going to do my best to equally pump you up and also be like sober in my
keep you down to earth.
Yeah, or just
100%.
like, you know, like kind of like because that's what you're hyping, and then you're like, oh, but the garbage needs to get taken out. And so, you know, but like then you're both like, no, the respect, the trust is sort of there, I think.
Yeah, I think that I do like, I have never had reason to sort of feel untrustworthy of yeah, I don't know. I just think that's special that we do have the trust that we have.
So it helps that no one really knows what I do anyways. So there's like this tiny little niche of people that understand what I do. And then everyone else is like, oh, so you make cables. Great. Good for you.
She was asking you how you describe what you do. I was like, I feel like I've got it down pretty well. It's like describing, because people ask, well, I've always described it as like you work in the music industry and you work with a lot of musicians too. I have often described it as, like the guitar pedals they use, like Grant builds a lot of like accessories that help those kind of like function well. And I just say you do custom work, like you do custom setups and if it depends who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to like an actual muso, then it's like different explanation. But yeah.
He solders stuff. You soldered stuff. I love that. Micah even went into
I
the
did
shop,
a few
right?
days in the shop learning how to make some PCBs. Yeah, it was actually kind of fun learning that.
Yeah. As we sort of probably close out, we've had such a good convo. Let's end on fatherhood. Yeah, just to make it super light, not make you cry. But actually maybe even reference if you want, like I know your dad has had, like he's been, I think, a good father to you. I've appreciated actually your parents, and your dad in particular, sort of his expansive view. I think both of you, and I think of you in particular, are very expansive in your thinking, which just, again, creates more room for, thinking about things from different angles. I think your dad is very much like that, and you probably adopted that now in your later life. So maybe, reference a bit about, the triumphs and the failings of that, and maybe even, your own as you sort of approach, these boys becoming a bit older and, what it's done to you.
Yeah, I feel like it's changed me a lot and will continue to do so. I feel like being a dad has shown me how much of a child I still am as far as maturity. I get triggered by them easily.
Can Micah attest to that?
She can. She points out like probably a little excessive. And they're at a beautiful stage in the sense that we can start doing things together, activities, and make memories together. And but they're also at the stage where they are wanting independence beyond their age and learning how to communicate that. And it butts up against my expectations of how they should speak to their parents and behave. So it's been probably the most challenging thing and the most rewarding. Like all the cliches you hear about parents, it's been that. But if there's one thing I could choose to be successful at, it would be being a dad. And even and again, trying to find the formula of which I will not find.
Yeah, like what is that success,
exactly.
Right? Like,
I want my kids to be in their 20s and 30s and beyond and want to be around us. That would be a big marker of success, a selfish one, but a big marker of success is that they want to be around their parents, that they don't, like what Micah was saying before, they don't feel judged. We are a safe place. That would be huge for me. And I would love to work my way there. And I think, so one of the things that challenges me currently about being a dad, with that goal being in mind of I want them to be independent. I want them to be successful. I want them to look forward to coming home for holidays, to be near us. I am trying to manage my ability to react and instead respond to them when they are not, when they're just being kids.
Yeah.
I want to build that relationship now that I want to see in 20 years. And I can point to more failures than successes, but even just learning how, so Asher is the oldest, Wilder is the youngest, even learning how different, we talk about this quite a bit, they are such different boys and you need to approach them differently. And I feel like, again, being a slow learner, I'm starting to grasp some of that, and how they show and express love is very different. And it's a puzzle. Like they're complex little human beings. But yeah, fatherhood, it's beautiful.
I have one question to maybe close out, because I feel like there's a lot of messages out there about what it means to like be a woman, what it means to be a man. A lot of like yeah, I think some harmful ones, some okay ones. And I'm just curious what you would say when it comes to like manhood. What would a message about manhood be that you would be happy about like being out there for?
Oh man, I feel like this is you're baiting me for a question I'm going to regret
Well,
in 10
no,
years.
just for like, because
It's okay. You can move beyond these moments.
Yeah,
Excited.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm obviously like I am big on feminist perspective, but I think feminism is not like an anti-male thing. It is inclusive of, right, but yeah, and nuance and just like how we can live together well. And I think there are also a lot of messages out there right now for younger men and a lot of them are not helpful and are kind of toxic about what it means to be a man. And, not saying you have the answer of what it is, but what is a quality that, or something about manhood that you think should be normalized?
I think I would love it if there was a message for men that they can be strong, but by being honest and vulnerable, they are not weak. I think being able to communicate your feelings, emotions, perspectives, beliefs in a healthy, non-volatile way is awesome and something I would love to master one day, of which I have not. I would probably, and this is where I don't know if I'll regret saying this or not. I'm trying to think of other perspectives, but I would probably say I think men can act and behave in a way that this wouldn't be exclusive, I don't think, but I think they can behave in a way that protects the less vulnerable or the more vulnerable people in their lives, in their community. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think I don't think that is something I would regret saying. I don't know. I think men can be strong and protectors, and I also think they can, in the same instance, be vulnerable and cry. And I think they don't have to be this one-sided thing that we are presented of. Strong, deal with it internally. Don't let people see you have any sliver of weakness. I push back against that. I think men can have very feminine qualities while also being very masculine. Like what would be currently perceived as being feminine in our society, as in, being in touch with their emotions, being good communicators, and
having friendships.
Yeah, having friendships. And this is something where I don't have tons of friendships, but the ones I have, I'm grateful for. And I believe we're mostly aligned in the sense that we talk about things that are really difficult. And we talk about things that we struggle with. And I'm really finding it hard to do this week. And I was too short with my kids, and I wish I wouldn't do that. How do I get better at it? Whereas I'm probably the anti-male in some aspects of I don't like sports. I cry like on a whim, and it drives me nuts sometimes. I love talking about how I feel about certain things. I love conversation. I'm no muscle man. Like there's so many things about me that are not the flannel wearing lumberjack that is always
you
tough.
wear some flannel.
I got the flannel, but I don't have anything else. So I don't know. I think it's varied and wide.
Yeah. Well, and you also
human.
You learn from your wife. Actually, that's something that's interesting. Like with you gaining more perspective from school, and like you're learning a lot more, for example, about feminism. Like how is that sort of working between the two of you, where you're open to hear the things that she's bringing home, and possibly like as you're like, I'm going to regret saying this, but as like evolving even beyond what you have now, which I know we're all after, but how is that working between the two of you?
Man, we've had so many good conversations.
School has been
easy
ones.
Yeah. They've been hard conversations.
Yeah.
And I feel like
a little scary. Just wondering.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Scary conversations.
Yeah.
She's bringing things home from her, different classes that would be like, is marriage actually what it's cracked up to be? Should we even be married right now? Like that's a scary conversation for me.
So just other models of relationship.
Well, and it's some of the foundational aspects of how you are building your life, marriage being one of them, right? Yeah, to question everything.
Yeah, and so that's been, I think the biggest thing it's pointed out is I still I have so much to learn. Like, there's so much I just have never been exposed to, as far as different viewpoints that things I didn't even know existed. And she'll bring them home and talk about it. I was like, man, my initial gut reaction is to say that's crazy.
Yeah, you're like, no.
Oh, and then I hear her explain it. I was like, less crazy. I could see how that would work for some people. But as of right now, I would never adopt a polyamorous relationship. I recoil at that thought, and I don't think it can work for me.
Yes.
But
Right,
I can
if this
see,
is something we've talked about. That's
yeah,
it's
but
like
then
one
at
of
least
many
there was
things.
a discussion sort of to go like, well, like, help me just to try and like see, like, let's talk about it, instead of like, not that it's on the table, but more like, let's just experiment a little with our thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's where deconstruction has propelled me into this space where, like, I'm no longer afraid to explore things out of just fear, because I'm like, it's like less scary of me. Ideas are less scary. Yes, they can challenge and shake, but I think also exploring them actually helps you to solidify what you actually believe and think. So for me, that's like a huge part of critical thinking, is the exposure to many ideas and different ideologies or theories about, and like that's how you form your own, you know? So I feel like, yeah, our discussions of those were kind of scary at first, but then like they've actually helped us realize what we do believe about being in a monogamous, like, exclusive partnership that we love and that we...
You're monogamous? Yeah, good.
Yeah, diffs. You know what? We also really love couples therapy. And that show is just great because it does highlight a lot of... Right, and it shows the realities of lots of different ways people are in relationship together, and often just all of them are hard. Like, it's hard work being in a relationship.
In an arrogant way, and I realize this is arrogant. I look at some of the stories that go on in that show. I'm like, oh, maybe we're doing a bit better than I thought we were, you know? Like,
in some ways,
it is
and in other
encouraging.
ways,
Like, again, far from perfect. We have our stuff, but it's like, oh, I've never had to worry about a lot of the stuff that comes up.
Well, and take the win, right?
Yeah,
like, and if
exactly.
it is simple, like I say to some, because I will say divorce is like, it's not for the faint of heart. Like, don't do it if you don't have to.
Yeah, well, a lot of people stay unhappily married just because of the work of divorce.
Yeah, and which I'm like, sometimes I'm like, good for you, but I also would say, like, expand yourselves. Like, I mean, I have one friend that I don't think is really like, yeah, maybe a Christian in the Christian context anymore, and then therefore I'm like, well, maybe an open marriage is what you need, which I think of my former self and I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm saying these things. But in the sense that, like, yeah, they still partner well, like for trips and things like that, and it's not a volatile relationship. So maybe just thinking outside of the box. Maybe. I don't know what different people need in their relationship. I have no clue. So,
but I think being willing to have that conversation, just the conversation, not the commitment of this, but it will be potentially a revealer of
the actual issue, right? Yeah. Like, is it the fact that we're not compatible sexually? That's our main issue. Well, then could we fix that in some way? Like, then, yeah, it helps to kind of sift out. Yeah, exactly what you're saying.
Thing about marriage in our context overall, and there's so many people have said a version of what I'm about to say, so I might be stealing someone's quote, but the sense that we got married to a particular set of people. Like, I got married to Micah from 13 years ago, 12 years ago. Yeah, that was who Micah was at that point, and that's who I married. And now Micah today is very different. A lot of these things are still the same, but very different. And if I would have known that Micah today was going to exist, would I have still chosen her back then? Probably not, because that would have been too dangerous. That would have been too unknown. And so the idea of I'm marrying Micah as she was, but I'm also marrying an unknown future spouse that's yet to be revealed. And same for her. It's exciting. It's pretty scary. It's a back to the adventure thing. Like, I don't know what I'm getting into, and it's kind of fun. It might not work. It might work. I'll try my best. And so the thought that, and even the Micah I know now is going to be very different to the Micah at 45, at 70. I don't really know where we're going to end up.
Well, and kind of like that constraining, like some people see some bit of change and they just like hunker down and they're like, no, stop that. And the control kind of can happen. And they're like, if you just stay the same, then I know what I'm getting.
Right. The certainty piece.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like you go into the partnership to begin with and you are committing to that version of that person. So it makes sense why people can't handle when the change. I mean, they say even cellularly, we change every 7 years. Apparently, we're a completely different version of ourselves, like physically. And so, yeah, of course, we're going to change, but it is kind of nuts that we commit to like one version of ourselves. And then,
but I think the other idea is that if people change, I can never get bored of Micah.
Yes, I know. That's that flip side, right?
That's something I like to play with. And like, you can't box me.
Yeah.
Short hair, long hair, like maybe it'll be straight one day. No, just kidding. Yeah, it's cute. Oh, thanks you guys just for your vulnerability and just for being open. Final question.
This was fun.
Yeah, why Goodwood? Because again, we're bad people, so why Goodwood?
What are they really trying to say? Kind of name? Is it dirty? Is it not?
Okay, there was a little of that.
Oh, I get that question all the time.
He asked me back when I was a very like pure Christian, like, do you think this name is like, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, Goodwood.
I love it.
Now,
you're a little Micah.
Oh, I see what you were getting
No
at.
thoughts of erections coming. Yeah, no. It's my old business partner's.
That's Asher. It's right there. Hey. Oh. Yeah, your old business partner.
His elementary school or preschool was named Goodwood Academy or something like that, and so he just kind of liked how it sounded. Goodwood audio.
Also, my maiden name was Fleetwood. And we always, I don't know, I remember that was coming up a tiny bit. Not that you named it after me, but anyway, we got to the Goodwood.
We've had Goodwood on, bad people or too bad. Well, welcome to the dark side. Yes, it's very good.
Great.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Love it.
Again, always love like your humanity, just your perspective on life. And yeah, thanks again. Thanks for teaching us also a lot about podcasting, because if it wasn't for Grant, we'd sound worse than we do.
Right. He's done some behind the scenes editing for us, which is amazing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
See you
Love
soon.
ya.
Bye.